Look, we are facing a situation of dreadful suffering in Gaza. There can be no doubt about that. I spoke some weeks ago about the danger of this tipping into famine and the danger of illness tipping into disease, and we are now at that point. People are dying of hunger, people are dying of otherwise preventable diseases. And the situation is very bad because we've been pushing for this aid to get in. We've had a whole set of things we've asked the Israelis to do, but I have to report to your Lordship's House that the amount of aid that got in February was about half what got in January. So patience needs to run very thin, and a whole series of warnings need to be given, starting, I hope, with the meeting I have with Minister Gantz when he visits the UK tomorrow. We've set out very clearly a set of 5 asks which need to be put in place. The humanitarian pause, the capacity inside Gaza that many noble lords have spoken about, the increased access through both land and maritime routes, including Ashdod port, which the noble Lord Collins mentioned, and of course expanding the type of humanitarian assistance that gets in. Too many items are sent away because they're supposedly dual-use goods, and some of these things are things that are absolutely necessary for medical and other procedures. And we also need to see a resumption of electricity, water to North and South Gaza. Let me say again at this dispatch box, Israel is the occupying power. It is responsible. And that has consequences, including in how we look at whether Israel is compliant with international humanitarian law. So I think that is the most important thing on the issue of Gaza. Turning to the political process and how, as many noble lords said, how do we try and turn this moment of such disaster into a moment of opportunity? Baroness Northover, the noble Lord Desai, the Bishop of Leeds, Lord Lee, all asked, are we committed to finding an answer? Do we see this as an opportunity? And my answer to that is yes, the situation is terrible, but if we can turn a pause for this hostage deal into a sustainable ceasefire and build momentum so we don't go back to fighting, there is a chance, because I think, as the noble Lord Lee said, there's some exhaustion on both sides. There may be a chance to get to a more of a political solution. I know a number of noble lords, including Lord Hannay, said, are we rather torturing ourselves with this debate between pause and ceasefire? The reason I think this is the right way is by saying a pause, which should happen now. I want it to happen tonight, tomorrow, to stop this killing, is to have a pause, and then you put in place the conditions that make a ceasefire more likely to be permanent. You've got to get the Hamas leadership out of Gaza. You've got to get rid of the terrorist infrastructure. You've got to have a new Palestinian government. You've got to have the horizon towards Palestinian statehood. These things are necessary in order to have a chance of a genuine peace process and outcome. I thought the noble Lord Ricketts and noble Lord Roberts asked absolutely the right question, which is, as part of this, what is the guarantee of security that Israel can have? A two-state solution won't work if Hamas are still running Gaza, and if there aren't guarantees about how secure Israel would be living alongside a Palestinian state. So we have to get that right. Let me reconfirm Britain is committed to a two-state solution, and also reconfirm, following the noble Baroness Hellick's excellent speech on recognition. What I'm saying is that clearly part of a two-state solution is the recognition of Palestine as a state. I don't think that should happen at the start of the process, because I think that takes all the pressure off the Palestinians to reform. But it shouldn't have to wait till the end. And I think the point that Lord Hannay and others made, that we shouldn't give Israel a veto power, which is the effect of the American policy at the moment. And so I think that recognition can become part of the unstoppable momentum we need to see towards a two-state solution. The noble Lord Hayne made a very powerful speech about Gaza, but I don't agree with him. I'll just say about this issue of hypocrisy when we look across to the Ukraine and Russia dossier. There was no 7th of October event in Russia. Russia's invasion of Ukraine was without any justification. It's the simple invasion of one state by another, and I think it is different to the situation with Israel and Gaza. I want to reply very. I'm very sorry. If I have time at the end, I will. But I want to try and get through as many. It's a challenge to try and answer 63 speeches, and I'm determined to be equal to it. Lord Pollock made a very powerful speech, and I want to answer him directly. Ask the question: do we still believe Hamas-run Gaza can't be a partner for peace for Israel? Correct. It can't be. Hamas is a terrorist organisation, and let me say very clearly, its apologists should not be invited into the FCDO for a seminar. I once said as Prime Minister that when you're Prime Minister you spend half the time trying to find out what the government's doing, and then you spend the other half of the time trying to stop it. And it turns out that being Foreign Secretary is not entirely different. Let me pay tribute to the very strong speeches by the Noble Baronesses Altman and Baroness Deitch on UNRWA. And I totally understand the concern about the fact that people that work for that organisation were involved in October the 7th. That is a shocking fact. It has to be properly investigated. There have to be proper undertakings and reforms to that organisation so it can't happen again and it can be put beyond doubt. But what I would say to the House is, if we also want aid delivered, UNRWA is the only body with a distribution network. So we have to have a dose of realism about what we can achieve and how quickly we can achieve it. But the promotion of extremism, that does need to be properly dealt with.